right, we are joined by Pebbles now for our fourth session of the day. We just passed the 15-minute mark. We are going to be bringing on Stephanie to talk about KPIs that we need to track. So when you are ready, Stephanie, let's come on down.
I'm unmuted,
There we go.
which is not something I get to say a lot.
I loved in your bio included the Southern wit. I was like, yep, that's right on
That's
brand.
more like just a preparation of what you're getting into kind of thing. Yeah.
So let's give a quick background before we get started for people that aren't too familiar with you.
Yes. So I am from the corporate world of finance originally and left after the birth of my first son around, it was right after 9/11, things were changing, and fell into the motherhood, which, you've heard the song and dance, you give up your career, you decide you're about the PTA, you realize the PTA is not your people. And so then you go and search for something else, which for me was, I've always exercised. It's part of my mental health. So I found a class that I fell in love with and decided that Chicago winters were enough for a Southern woman, and moved back home to open up my own bar studio. I was a bar franchisee here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and was finding my groove. I know, like many people, you decide the franchise route because you want to be a part of something bigger. And you also hope that you don't make 9 out of the 10 business mistakes that small business owners make. So I was finding my groove with it and was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I had to sell my business a little earlier than I was ready to, but I sold it in 3 days and it was pre-COVID.
I mean,
so there you go.
A win. Yeah.
Yeah. Still loved the fit with fitness and finance. And I had people come up to me and said, can you teach me everything that you know? And I'll be quite honest, as I'm listening to some of the other webinars and the relatability from working with someone who has been in your shoes is incredible. And what I want everyone listening to know, the advice that you give, yes, is a lot of things that we did and we did well. But I think the more poignant ones are the things that we look back on that we wish we could have done better, or were failures of things that we tried, which I love to fail. And so we're just sharing that experience and knowledge moving forward.
Absolutely. So, no, there's been some great sessions today. I love the relatability. It sounds like everybody has owned a studio at one point, which I kind of feel like is the backbone of being a consultant to anything. Can't really consult on things you're not familiar with.
Well, people do.
People do. People do. That is probably one of the easiest professions to start, to say, like, I'm a consultant, but to be a good consultant and have happy customers is a different story.
Yeah. It's all about the connection. It's all about the relationships, and you just have to find your fit.
For sure. All right, let's dive in. For this one, I'm going to share my screen and be the driver of the presentation.
Yep, this should be interesting.
Yeah, I think we can do this. So today we're here to talk about KPIs and which ones to track. And at some point, we'll even screen share and show you how to get these at a Fit Degree. So I'll let you take it away, Stephanie.
Yeah, we didn't indicate what that we're doing. Do you just want to do like this when it's time to switch the slide? Is that fine?
Yeah, you could do a thumbs up if I'm not intuitively picking it up.
So I want to start off by saying that the numbers can be scary, right? Diving into it can seem overwhelming. And if you're anything like me, if there's something that is overwhelming, I'm going to procrastinate and I'm going to procrastinate and I'm going to procrastinate until I have to dive into it. The interesting thing about this is I am a numbers person. And I cannot sit here and tell you as a studio owner that I put it as the top thing on my category to make sure that I was on top of. You are going to find situations where you're having to work in your business, putting out fires, and sometimes this gets put on the back burner. I am hoping that today, from taking this high level view and kind of taking it down to a simple approach, will make it more approachable for you, because it is something that you need to know. I feel like a lot of studios that I deal with, they go by feelings. Like, I feel like this month was good, or I feel like things are low. When in actuality, the numbers are there just to paint the picture of what it looks like. And you then can figure out what you need to do after you see what the picture looks like. So it's going to be that simple.
Love it.
This is me in my cute pixie haircut. We're going to give a QR code at the end, just like every other consultant has done, to be able to give you an opportunity for a free consultation to see if there's a fit or there's any value added, because I know a lot of times when it comes to numbers, you're very hesitant about sharing your personal stuff. So that usually is a conversation held for a one-on-one conversation.
Makes sense.
All right, step. So again, the first step I want to take is to kind of get rid of any hesitancy you have at looking at your numbers. Your point of sale system, and in this awesomeness is Fit Degree, we're going to go through what's going to give you a lot of what your sales numbers are, but there's also an aspect that I want to start off with, and that comes with your expenses. The money going out of your business is as important as the money coming in order for you to take a look at the full picture. So when we're doing that, we're going to start with the expenses. It's really important for you to simplify and streamline your expenses, one, and to keep up with them on a monthly basis to see where the money is going and if that money still needs to go there. So when you're looking at your business needs, you need to evaluate them, and you also need to look at all of the expenses. Is this bringing me more clients? Is this giving me more time? Is this something that's going to make me money? Because in all of our aspects, which kind of leads into prioritizing your role, there are duties as an owner that either you're not good at, or you don't like to do, or you procrastinate enough. So looking at your numbers will enable you when it comes to that point, like Nicole so eloquently said before, her importance is that front desk staff salesperson.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
if that's where your money needs to go, and you need to kind of prioritize what your role looks like, looking at your numbers and expenses is going to help you budget for that. And when it comes to data, it is very important to go ahead and embrace that, because there's no way for you to be able to manage the numbers if you don't measure them. And that comes into play with goals, like using as an example, let's say you want to try a new client special. You need to finagle it. Maybe it's not a month, maybe it's 2 weeks, because people after the pandemic tend to just only look at the immediate future. You're going to need to manage that and measure that to see if it's successful. If you just put it out there and you let it fly, and you don't manage how many people have bought it, how many clients you've retained from it, you're never going to know if it was successful or not. So that's what I mean when I say the numbers just paint the picture, so that you can prioritize what you need to do next.
Yeah, make some data-driven decisions.
Make some data-driven trips. And I promise you it all won't be this wordy, because we're going to be fun and interactive. It's very important when you talk about numbers to be very dynamic about it.
Yes.
So I'm going to provide a spreadsheet when we move to the next slide, and it's also going to be available, like Nick said, on the portal. When it comes to monthly expenses, and this is very important for you to realize when it comes to numbers. I know for me, if I'm looking at a spreadsheet, if it is not organized the way that makes sense to me, I'm not going to go back to it. So I'm going to provide you a sample spreadsheet, and I want you to take the authority to make it look however you make it look. You cannot change the formulas, and you can't fub on the numbers, but as far as the organization of it, when it comes to expenses, like I said before, if you are able to look at them on a monthly basis, make the decisions that you need for your business, and there's always going to be opportunities to negotiate. There's always going to be times to eliminate. And what I mean by that is you might have, let's just say in March, got into some subscriptions to help you with your virtual platform, and they're just running back here. Unless you're monitoring on the month basis, you might have realized that you could have canceled this 6 months ago because you're just not using it anymore. Revenue, again, just as important as expenses. What I want to tap in with revenue, which we're going to provide you a detailed spreadsheet again also, is that you can look at it high level as one ball of wax, or what I'm going to recommend is that you segment and you itemize it so that you can see which revenue categories are breaking even, which ones are profitable, or which ones are losing you money. That's what I mean when it says the numbers giving you the picture. When you look at that, you can then come from a place as an owner to make decisions that come from a business standpoint and not an emotional standpoint, which is really easy to get into. You can also look at, and when I say dive even deeper, retail might be something that's important to you, and you might want to segment the retailers. There could be some that you sell more of a product, and when you take into account your credit card processing fees and your cost of goods sold, how much money is it making? Is it worth the time and effort for you to do this? Clients, important to know how many clients you have at any given time. Recently, and Nick, you and I discussed this, that I think a report that's overlooked, or a number that you should try to look at, is the average lifespan of your auto pay clients. And we'll get into that again. Nicole did a great job of suggesting auto pays, which is like a primary requirement for your recurring revenue. You want it at 80%. So a client came to me one time and we were discussing the lifespan of her auto pay clients. How long is that lifespan? How many times do people come with you and how long do they stay? And I thought that was an important report to run. Again, latching on to Nicole's presentation. If your average client lifespan is like 9 months, maybe you need to start finding out what's going on in month 5 or 6, because 9 out of 10 times it could be something that was preventable. That might be something going on with your studio that you're just not aware of. So the campaign she talked about with the sales process, it's just as important as you're courting and dating someone to make sure to still stay in touch with them when they're a member with you, right? Nobody's going to sleep with you on the first date. You got to court them. And then after you take them to dinner, you can't drop them. So it's important that you look at the numbers, and that way you're able to kind of segment what those sales process or what those campaigns need to look like. Average client monthly value is exactly what it says here. What are your expenses? How many unique clients do you have? And by figuring that out, you can then determine how many clients you need to make the goals that you want to make. And then when it comes to employees, there are certain benchmarks that we'll go over. You want to see where your payroll lies in percentage to everything that you're taking in, because this, along with rent, are one of the 2 most expensive expenses that you have on the books.
Yes.
Yes. Does that cat look comfortable or what? Yeah. Sample KPI expense report. This is going to be available to you. What I did here is I just listed out a lot of expenses to kind of get your juices flowing on what that needs to be. You might not have any of these. You might have a payroll service that's not Gusto. You can change this however it makes sense to you. My suggestion, again, get as detailed and itemized as you can. Pretend like you're going through a divorce and you need to itemize everything so you know how much money you need to get. That's how serious you're taking this. The reasons why I like to do this on a monthly basis, besides the noticing if you're carrying subscriptions or expenses you don't need to, is for you to prepare yourself for the cyclical times of your business so that you can budget your cash flow accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if you live where I live in Louisiana, this electricity bill in July is really high. Same if it's cold. You need to go ahead and just adjust for those. A point that I will bring up, because this was something I went over with my client, a lot of these operating and fixed cost, let's just take Zoom for instance, you could get a discount if instead of paying monthly, you pay all of it upfront on an annual basis, right? You need to decide if you want to take that monthly amount and be consistent over each month, or if you want to lump that whole amount in the month that it comes out to give you a more accurate picture. My suggestion is just remain consistent in whichever method you choose to monitor it by. Lastly, on this, you don't even need to break these out into variable operating if it makes sense to just have expenses. Again, going back to, I just want you to itemize it as much as possible so you're taking a look at the whole picture. And the formulas are in there. So again, you can just play around with the numbers.
Yeah, I love the idea of splitting into variable and fixed, because it just kind of lets you know what, like, the fixed cost is like, can I cut it? You
Right.
know, so something like Zoom, it's like, we're no longer doing virtual, I can cut
Or
it.
even downgrade.
Right, downgrade. And it's like, yeah, that's a great point. And the variable cost, it's like some of these are variable in your control, and some of them are variable outside of your control. And electricity in one is a great point of like, what's the average? Like, a lot of our spreadsheet for Fit Degree is rolling 12-month average, because like the rolling 3-month average would just be a lie, you know, whether it's leads coming in, electricity bills. Like, a 3-month average feels like a long time, but these things are cyclical over 12 months. And
they are.
I always say rolling 12-month average, and then drag that number into the future. And then is that going to increase over time? You know,
right.
Like,
keeping an eye on it, and everything is negotiated. I think I put on my calendar, well, we don't have cable anymore. That's going to speak to my age if I still say I have cable, but like any kind of insurance or whatever, a cell phone bill, like you call and it's like, oh yeah, you didn't know we have a special, and you can negotiate that.
Yes.
A point that I want to bring up in the variable cost of teacher payroll, depending on how your business is set up, you might take your income as an owner draw, which that's a CPA question, depending on how you're set up. But I think it's important to note that I think the teacher payroll, for budget reasons, should include the classes you teach. So that
Yes.
if you take a step back from the studio, if it's a couple of days, if it's a week, whatever it is, you are not caught in a situation where you're behind the 8 ball because you didn't account for the payroll since you were taking it yourself.
Yeah, if you just took a vacation,
Yep.
and it's just like, yeah, you're gonna be caught blindsided by like, oh, I forgot I teach 6 classes a week, So
Whoops, didn't account for
that's a
that.
really good point.
So just a note to that. And again, just being consistent with the numbers. So when you're looking at them month to month, all makes sense. And then you could take it a step further. You could do quarterly numbers. The reason why the numbers come into play with me so much and will go is because goals, setting
Yeah.
your goals to see where you are when it comes to your profit or loss or how things look as you're digging back out of COVID. You put that goal out there, and it's so fun to see as a consultant when you're talking to your owners and they're in that feeling like, I don't know, I did well. And I'm going, you just had your best quarter ever.
Right.
Like you just hit all the goals we said. And it's like, oh, really? It's like, yes,
Yeah.
that's a good feeling.
It takes away that how do you feel? It's
Correct.
just like,
I
yeah,
don't care how you feel. What does the spreadsheet say?
absolutely.
Okay, so we had to put in a pretty picture chart because I'm not as great as presentations as all my other fellow consultants. So I always feel like a good pie chart needs to come in here. What I want you to take away from this is a perfect case scenario. And I don't know about you, but sometimes in my life, I want to go to my perfect case scenario because I've been watching the news too much or something. This is something just to kind of lean into, something to kind of take a note of. So we'll kind of go through this. So like the 30% overhead, obvious, that's going to be your fixed costs, what turning the lights on, all of that kind of fun stuff that it takes to run your business. Your practitioner expense is going to be anything associated with your payroll, your instructors. Do you provide continuing education that you pay for them? Any of that type of stuff. Your payroll, if you notice, we're going to get to this a little further. Your payroll should be between 30 and 50%, with 30% being your goal. That being said, there are going to be months where these things skew, right? So that 30% in profit, if you've ever heard of like the profit first, where you have the different accounts where you can shift stuff, that amount might fluctuate if you need to throw more money at your practitioner expense because you did decide to take a vacation, or because you're in Southwest Louisiana and electricity bills are now 3 times as much, you might need to throw a little bit into the overhead. And then the 10%, which Nick, since I told you once, can you pronounce that word for me?
I don't even want to try. Lagniappe?
Lagniappe. It is a French
Lagniappe.
word that means a little something extra. And so again, in your perfect world, you have that little buffer to get you through some of the months that might be leaner than others. Do not panic if your world does not look like this, because you are now going to start looking at your numbers and you're going to see how it tweaks moving forward.
Yeah, well, I love the idea of having a goal to work towards, and for the
Yep.
lanyap,
Yes, good job.
lanyap.
We'll get you some
I
Mardi Gras
remember,
beads next time so you
right?
can feel local. Yeah.
Get some gumbo.
Yeah.
I remember when we started doing my financial forecast, I started off that number at 20%. Then
Mhm,
I got it down to 10%. Now I have it at 5% because it's
mhm.
just like I've gotten more and more accurate. But
Yep.
thank goodness I had that at 20% to get started. And then it felt good to get it to 10. And now that I have it just 5, it's just like, I've been doing this long enough. I don't think I'm going to get things wrong, but business is business and you never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. Someone needs a new laptop that you didn't plan for, things like that. So yeah, I love that idea of having that little buffer and the pie chart in general just to work towards.
Pie chart in general. If you look at it kind of like a practice and a journey, like we educate our clients, like this is something to provide consistency and you stay with it and things will get better. So it's one of those
Yes.
things where you just get more comfortable with your numbers and you feel more empowered in the
Mhm.
decisions that you make. And then you have the structure and the goals to kind of lean into and go, is this aligned with what I want to do?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it gives you that, yeah, it gives you that ability, like we said before, to make decisions from that business standpoint and not always the emotional of how it feels.
Yeah. That'd be too frustrating.
Everybody's gonna be doing this later. Thumbs up. Okay, revenue. After this is where the working part comes in, because all of these numbers we're going to be able to pull from Fit Degree. And like Nick mentioned a handful of times before, we want to make sure that you have actionable things to leave when
Mhm.
you leave today to be able to better your business. So in the revenue portion up here, This can be as high level as detailed as you need it to be. If you want to separate your one-on-ones, if you want to separate the fees into different things or the retail products into retailers, whatever that needs to look like. And the purpose is by breaking it out is what we talked about before. So you can look at the service categories to see which ones are working for you and your bottom line. Because you cannot manage what is not measured. So a lot of times if you're going off the feeling like, oh my God, like we have a kid's room and it's rocking, it's packed all the time. And then you start looking at the expenses and you're like, I don't even make money off of this. I'm losing money. Type of thing allows you to make those decisions. You carry over your expenses from the previous spreadsheet that you just did, and you're able to calculate where you are in the profit or loss for that month. Keep in mind, this is not going to look exactly like your bank statement, right? Because things are settling all the time. Credit cards take different amounts of time to go and settle and show in your account. You're looking at what's happening in each month, which is important that you're comparing apples to apples. So when we go through all these reports that we're running, we're going to be looking at a particular month, and that needs to be consistent so that you're pulling the numbers to be able to accurately compare them. You ready to get in some fun, Nick?
Well, let's get to it.
The correct response would have been, I thought we were already having fun. So we're going to go through in the spreadsheet that I have industry standard benchmarks to hit. So you might do a formula, you're like, great, I'm at 20%. What the hell does that mean? How am I compared to my industry? You also need to look at when you're looking at your expenses and your revenue to help figure out what your break-even point is. What do you need to pull in so that all of your bills are paid? And that should include yourself. Granted, that amount could waver. And then what does profit look like? And that plays right into your goals. However you are with goal setting, I think it is very important for you to tap into that, because you want to make sure whatever you set is digestible and actionable. If you were to sit here today and go, I want 100 new clients in 2023, that feels insurmountable. But if you were to divide it up on a quarterly or a monthly or a weekly basis, it's a hell of a lot more digestible. So do not set yourself up for failure, especially if you're starting at, I'm going to get comfortable with my numbers. All about shooting for the stars. Go get barefoot in the grass, ground yourself with the universe, shout it out into the universe. But make sure that when you're looking at it, because the last thing that you want to do is go, oh my God, I'm so off. And then you fall off of that trajectory that you have. So digestible goals, always very important.
Yes.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
I thought we were ready last slide. Now we're ready.
Great.
Okay.
I got caught off guard.
Now we're ready.
All right. So we have this spreadsheet of some basic KPIs that we should be tracking. And I'm going to give everybody a little bit of digital whiplash as we go back and forth between this and the Fit Degree admin. So I'll let Stephanie take that control.
Yes. And again, this is going to be available to you. The formulas are already plugged in. We're going to go through how to get these numbers off the system so you can plug and play. And that way you can carry it through every month. So we're going to start with the revenue by category. And again, this goes into the service categories, and you're going to be able to itemize them as much as you have them set up in the system. So whatever you have in the system, I don't know if you want to talk through what you're pointed out, Nick, as we go through this.
Yeah, so the first one, we are going to tackle the revenue by category, which Fit Degree calls it a revenue report. And if I generate this for the month of September, we kind of have this first view, which is more of the cash drawer view and the accountant view, I'll call it. But then right below it, we have our revenue by items. And this is a healthy graph to look at, because we see that big chunk of green that tackles the memberships. So we have on this spreadsheet, revenue by category, we have class packs and memberships to account for class revenue. So we just took this number of 13,470 and then class packs of 1892.50.
Which you could divide out if you wanted to.
Right, because
you could divide out.
Click into
I would look at that if you divide it up, having like auto pays, the recurring revenue as one, and then anything else. But again, it goes deal this a lot to clients. The information in the system to pull out is only as good as the information you put in.
Yes.
So if you want to get more detailed, then that's how you need to structure the pricing if it's something specific that you want to measure. Can you revert back to, because I'm sure one of the first questions is going to be, you have, when you go up on the screen, you have the revenue as a higher number, the
Yeah.
19,000, which is not what's reflected in the spreadsheet. Can you speak to them why those numbers are different?
That's not in the spreadsheet. This first row.
Right. Because we added those two.
So we said for the spreadsheet, we wanted to make it simple of what the majority of studios are doing, which is class revenue through class packs and memberships, fees, which are your late cancel fees, your no-show fees. Most studios have some type of retail and they have some type of event. This studio we're looking at is really striving for that 7 streams of revenue where they have their memberships and class packs. Also, a big chunk came from series. If we click into this, we see there's a kids series in here. There's a yin training. There's an Ashtanga master series. So they leverage series on top of events. They have their fees. And it looks like they have an intro offer that, I know the goal of the intro offer is to be a low barrier to entry, but it seems like the intro offer makes them a pretty penny every month.
Yeah.
And then lastly, they also do one-on-ones. So
again, this could be broken out however you need it to be broken out to look at the picture that you want to look at for your studio.
Yes.
So we just pulled out the ones that were most applicable, which is why those numbers are skewed a little.
And if
So
you
if you
just,
go
when
back-
you get into the spreadsheet and just, add rows above total sales, it will not impact the formula. It'll all just sum it
formula already in
together.
there. So if we go down to recurring revenue, the revenue from auto pays is simply the sales of the total sales that are strictly auto pay numbers.
Yeah, which is for us, that's memberships.
Right. So, if you go back to the spreadsheet, again, the formula is already in there. And Nicole tapped on this. You want your goal, let me back up. From your studio, you want classes to be 80% of your revenue. Of the classes that you sell, you want 80% of those to be auto pay.
Yes.
Or recurring. So this formula is simply the revenue from auto pays divided by the total sales. This studio is sitting at 83.67% of the people that are buying from them buying on auto pay. Very healthy number to have. Again, if your number is not near this, it's just a goal to grow to. You don't know what you don't know. And you're going to take all of this fabulous information from today and put it into place. And it's going to be a trajectory of growth. Under that is your total memberships, which I always think is a good number to have, because when you're putting your goals together, you can either focus on the amount of people or you can focus on the numbers, as long as you know how that marriage works together. Yep. Can you show them how you pulled up that number and why it's skewed a little bit?
Yeah, I had to mute myself a bit for the dog. A lovely work from home life. But in the Fit Degree dashboard, you're going to go to reports. And right on that dashboard is going to be this graph of clients on auto pay. We're tracking this every day for the last 6 months. So for this spreadsheet, what we want to do is go to the last day of September. And we found that she had 122 clients on auto pay the last day of September. So that is the number that we plugged into this spreadsheet.
Into the spreadsheet. Okay, let's move to attendance. And there's a Mac Daddy spreadsheet that kind of goes with this that does a lot more. But again, we're high viewing this.
We just want to bridge the gap between I don't look at my numbers to, okay, I'll start looking at some numbers.
Total visits, we'll get that number from Fit Degree.
Also the dashboard. So this is currently, it just dates back 30 days. So you just take that date picker, do that. And now we see 1,021 total client check-ins done by 191 unique people. And instead of having to do math, Stephanie did that for us. And we found that for the month of September at this studio, on average, clients were coming 5.5 times.
Right. So going back to what Nicole said, because the sales process and these numbers are kind of like intertwined. You want to know this number so you know how to price your memberships.
Yeah.
Like she alluded to, the mindset of the consumer is either, I want to commit to you because my concern is getting the best value at the lowest price. Or I'm never going to commit to you. I want to know exactly how many times I come. I had a client once who would never get on auto pay because she said she committed to 2 people, her husband and her hairdresser. That was her philosophy. And I'm like, you run with that.
Yeah, right.
So,
you're not going to overcome that rebuttal.
Yeah, you do you. So knowing that number encourages you how to price your offerings. You're always going to have the people, like she said, that are going to price you out of everything. And you're going to have the people that don't even know they're still paying you. What I also want you to use this number in is because if you have a client who is not unlimited, they're a package purchaser, right? Could they be a recurring package purchaser? So
Yeah.
you might have unlimited and like a 4-pack, and then you have like a 4-pack auto renew that's discounted just a little bit so that you get that recurring money. This number becomes important when you're figuring that out, because the last thing you want to do is price yourself out of your unlimited membership. If your members are only coming 5 times a month, I don't want to say only, because it totally depends on what your scenario is. You don't want to give them a 6 times a month option that's cheaper than unlimited, because why would they go to unlimited? This number can change. And so it's important, as we're doing month to month, you're going to see like how your revenue ebbs and flows. You're going to see how your expenses ebb and flow. You're going to look at these numbers, and it's going to give you the ability to be able to plan accordingly ahead. If your summer is low and you're seeing the dip in that, what do you need to do differently or ahead of time? Is it a challenge? Is it youth programming? What is it that you need to do differently to come up with a different revenue stream to bring those numbers up? Or if you decide not to do anything, you can just budget accordingly. I say that because there's this snowball stand. I don't know if y'all know what snowballs are. It's like the ice with the syrup, snow cone, maybe you call it.
Yeah.
Who is an avid hunter. So he puts the sign up that the snow cone stand is open up from March to August, because September is opening of dove season. So he says snow cone season, dove season. So he's decided his business model to allow him the life he wants to lead. He's going to bust his ass for 6 months.
Yeah.
So that he can take off the next 6 months.
I like that.
The snow cone or the hunter?
Yeah, I love the idea when business owners kind of say like, I'm not going to grow to a 5-location business because that's not what I'm interested in. This business is going to get me off for the month of September, because if I work for somebody else, they're not going to understand that I want to take off for the month of September. So it's just always, whether you want to grow an empire or you want to take off the whole month of September, I just love successful business owner stories of like, I achieved my lifestyle.
What's interesting about that is, because not to get off topic when it comes to pricing, but I think as studio owners, we often look at our competitors to kind of, and I think that's a good place for a gauge, but you don't know what you don't know. You could have like, I'm just going to throw something out there, a cycle studio down the street that has classes all day long and it's packed, right?
Yeah.
They're pulling in like 30 grand a month. What you might not know is their expenses are 45.
Right.
And you might have the mom and pop yoga studio who's more casual, smaller attendance base, who's pulling in only 8 grand a month, but their expenses are 5.
It's all
Whose
about the
position
take
do you
home.
want to be in?
Right. It's all about the take home.
All right. You ready to move on to retention?
Yes. One of my favorite reports for us.
Dun, dun, dun. So first of all, what we're going to take into account is the amount of people that purchased your intro offer. Something for you to monitor, because in a perfect world, your intro offer is changing maybe every 3 months. You want to give it time to take off, but then maybe you want to go in different angles. And that way, by keeping up within your spreadsheet, you can see which ones are successful, maybe at which times of year. And what I mean by that is, if you're doing a special in December, you might not want to do an unlimited one, because you've got Christmas, you've got New Year. Someone's not going to feel like they got the value from it. So you might want to do like a 12 class special, because that way they can pick and choose, that kind of thing. All right. Intro offers.
Yeah. So we went to Fit Degree has an intro offer funnel report. The first thing in the spreadsheet says first time visitors that purchase an intro offer. So we're just gonna, you can compare intro offers in Fit Degree. You can have multiple ones. So we just add up whatever's here, and we have 24. So we plug that into the spreadsheet that we have 24 intro offers purchased for the month of September. The next piece of this is intro offer holders that converted to anything. So we made this spreadsheet last week. This is going to be a tough one for everyone because, depending on when you sell the intro offer in the month of September, how long that intro offer takes to expire, then we also keep this yellow pending 30 days after the intro offer expires. So to really accurately get September, you might have to wait till November 1st, really, to know these final conversion numbers. But at the time we did this, we see that they had 6 total conversions. So we plug that number into here. And we know our total conversion rate from intro offer to anything is 25%. But now what we can do in Fit Degree 2 is check this last data point, which if they're buying something next, what are they buying? And I think this is what we're looking for, is how many people are purchasing an auto pay membership from that intro offer. So then we plug that number in of 2, and now we find out that, a little bit under 8.5% are going from an intro offer to a membership.
Yep. And there's a handful of things to take from here. First one and most important is what you tapped on. The retention things I love and hate at the same time, for the reason that you said, is that depending on what your new client special is, and that can vary if you're changing it. If you're running September numbers and someone bought a 2-week special on September 29th, they don't have you're not going to be able to run at the end of September if they bought. So this is one of those things that I think you kind of go back after a couple of months to really see the true picture. But the picture you want to take away from here is, yes, the average is 25%, but everybody on here wants to be higher. Who wants to be average? Everybody wants to be better than average. This gives you an option to take a look at what's going on. Why aren't there more people converting? And the most important thing that I think you can do, which is a suggestion by my fellow consultant, Michael J., is to have a secret shopper. Have someone go and feel like the client experience. Like, am I greeted when I walked in? Is the space clean? Does the energy of the space match like the social media and the website? How was the class? Did were there any kind of myriad of things? Because it's important for you to nip things in the bud ahead of time before they become such an issue. And no one wanted to bring up to you that the bathrooms aren't cleaned correctly. They're just going to leave and you don't know why, when that is an easily fixable thing.
That is so interesting. I love that idea of like once a quarter, just throw a secret shopper in there.
Shopper. Another thing this could speak to is the quality of the sales process, like Nicole talked about. The person who's doing the greeting, are they armed with enough information to be able to help make the sale, to segment and cater to the specific needs of the person coming to them? Are you contacting them by email? Are you talking to them? Are you sending a note card? What does that look like? So a lot of these retention numbers give you an indication of how well you're doing, so that you can focus on what you can improve to make these numbers better.
Yes. And I don't want to spend too much time because we're running out of time to see how to track payroll, but
nobody knew how exciting and loquacious people talking about numbers could be.
We get excited.
So payroll, again, we bring this up because this is one of the 2 most expensive expenses that you have. And again, due to the fluctuations of it, how many classes you're teaching, if you're taking time off, whatever that looks like, it's important to keep an eye on this because it's a huge chunk of money that goes out of your business every month.
Yeah. And I love just associating a goal with it. It's got to make sense of getting an ROI out of your teaching staff.
Did you want to show them how to get to payroll or?
No, I think we're running too close on time.
Got it. But this will all be recorded, will be available. Got it.
Yes.
We're just going to wrap this up with, I want you to walk away with some empowerment of owning your numbers. Because again, going back to, they're just numbers. And as much as you can detail and itemize and structure it in a way that makes sense to you, so you can figure out what it looks like to get profitable, what your goals are, making sure you're paying your bills and your staff and yourself, which I know a lot of us just kind of hold off on that. Knowing what your expenses are, whether it's time to increase prices to your clients, what that looks like, how can you negotiate or eliminate some fees? And then again, by segmenting everything in your service category, because how many of us have had somebody come up to us and it's usually like the sweetest old lady in the studio that's like, I would love a class at 10:30. And you're like, oh my God, you're reactive and you want to do it. And then you realize she's the only one that comes.
Right.
Because you're coming from a place of emotion. But if you look at your numbers and listen, I need 8 people in every class to break even, or I need 10 people to be profitable. Then it's very easy for you to look at your numbers and go, you know what? I gave this 3 months. It's not taken off. I'm just taking it off.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. All right. It kicked me out of the picture, so I don't know what we're looking at, but okay, no, back on.
Okay, great.
And again, allows you just to maximize the additional revenue streams. You could have some revenue streams and it's okay to fail. You could order
Right.
some retail and you knock it out of the park, and the next time it doesn't do well, now you know, and you just move on.
Yeah.
So
Love
there
it.
you go.
All right. So we are running out of time. I don't think we have any questions that were asked. So let's just, this will be recorded. We will have the spreadsheet. We want you to expand on the spreadsheet to make it customized to you. And we have a big bold QR code here
Isn't
for
that cute? I did
can't
not make
miss
that.
it.
I did not make that.
Oh,
I
love
offer
that, the little logo
I
in there.
offer a free coffee and consultation if you want to talk, because like I said, numbers can be very personable. And again, I just want you to walk away with, it's a practice like anything else. The numbers are going to paint the picture for you to be able to stand in your value when you speak to people and be able to make those business goals, whatever you need to, in order to get you to the place that you want to be.
Love it. So we will have the recording, we will have the spreadsheet, we will have the link to connect with Stephanie in a couple weeks in the business portal. And that was awesome.
This was fun.
Appreciate you.
No
All right.
problem.
We'll talk soon.
Talk to you later.
See you later.
Bye.